Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from Vinyl MX, and we have another 2-stroke versus 4-stroke for you today. We have the all-new, very exciting KTM 300SX along with the 350 and 450 SXF. We have cross boxes. We're going to do some lap times with these guys with 3 different test riders, both the best and average lap times, and give you our opinions while testing all 3 of them out here at Fox Raceway. Okay, so as promised, we've got our first test rider here, Jacob Hayes. Jacob actually did the last lap time challenge we did with multiple bikes. We did the 250, 350, and 450 Husqvarna 4-strokes, and at the end of that day, you were the fastest on a 350. You were the worst on the 450, if I remember right. Pretty close to the 450. So coming into this, you waited to hear all your lap times and everything till after you were done. Let's go first off based off feel. What would you have told me if we start sitting down here? You know, hey, what were you best on? What did you feel best on?
I think most people do know I'm pretty fired up about the 300 KTM, as a lot of people are.
Just praise.
Yeah.
Life-changing experience.
Exactly. It's a great motorcycle. So we'll start with that. So I was just jazzed when you called and like, you want to do this 300, 350, 450 tests? Absolutely. So started the day, started on the 450, and yeah, I requested for you not to tell me lap times just because I wanted to go off of feel. I didn't want to try to each time better my lap, or I just wanted to go off of feel. And based off of feel, the 350 and 450 felt very similar to me in a lot of reasons. In sections where I felt better on my 450, based off of that power that I could really roll it on in third gear, I kind of struggled on the 350 and really had to clutch it, and it was kind of laboring a little bit, so I had to work the gearbox going up, down on the gears. And then you know, on the 450 I felt like that motor really pushes you wide a little bit in some of the sweepers and some of the tight stuff, to where the 350 you could kind of whip in and out of those little sections. And then when I got on the 300, I come off and I was like, I think I'm a little better on the 300. Like I couldn't tell which one I would have been better on between 350 and 450, but the 300 it felt like it had a little edge, and I didn't do any different lines. I didn't do any different cornering, nothing like that. I just wanted to have everything identical as we could, and just the motorcycle was somehow a little bit more user-friendly, and I just felt like I kind of whiz it in and out of some of the sections.
So the actual lap time, starting with your best lap. Your best lap on the 450 out here at Fox Raceway was a 1:41.91. That was the only lap time on the 450 you were able to get into the 41s. You also had a 42 and a 43 on the board. You got progressively faster over your 3-lap average on that bike though. On the 350, your best lap was a 1:41.44. You had 2 laps in the 41s and 1 just a tick into the 42s. And then on the 300, 1:41.27, best lap time of the day. All 3 of your laps were in the 1:41s on the 300. Wow. And you took the 3, even though we did this test as quickly as we could back to back, we started with you about noon. Track's already pretty blown out, a little bit hard packed in places. 300 was your last bike on the rotation.
Yep.
So like I said, the track conditions, we did it as quick as we could. You would literally get off one bike, back onto the next within 2 to 3 minutes. But still pretty impressive, as the track, even a little bit was breaking down that the 300 was the best. So from the 450 to the 350, you're 5/10ths better. On the 350 to the 300, you're 2/10ths better. We went over and looked at the data. We played back your best 300 lap versus your 350, and then we also played your 300 versus your 450 lap. What'd you notice based off the lines, acceleration zones? What you saw on the data from the crossbox, was it what you thought you experienced on the bike?
To be honest, it was. In the sections where I said that I felt like I kind of whizzed the motorcycle in and out and really rolled through the corners, that 300 just really, in third gear, on the aggressive map for me was just a lot cleaner running map. And in third gear, it was incredible how well the bike would respond. There wasn't a lot of kind of downtime. It was pretty instant how quick it got going with the throttle response, and you really never touched the clutch. And then even on the 450, like, yes, you get that thing going and it pulls forever. And the 300, it has like a weird rev limiter to it. Like, it doesn't, like, if you hit the wall, like, it almost doesn't like that. So you kind of have to flirt with a little bit of edge. So when it kind of starts going, like, you kind of just keep it mellow there. You don't just mash it all the way. And those sections where I could just mash the 450, yes, I would gain, but my entry speed was not enough to match up to the 300, because the 300 in the apex and towards the exit, you were just able to pick up 2 mile an hour more on the exit versus the 450, and the 450 would carry 2 mile an hour more coming in.
Well, the interesting part too is we were again looking at the line breakdown. Yes, the 350 and 300, you could see a small bit of line variance. There was a couple places like, oh, you're a little bit tighter on the 300 here, but they were still pretty similar. But you can see those couple little differences where, like, okay, you were able to keep it a little tight and needier here. You were able to pivot a little better on the 300. But then we get to the 450 lap and you see the place where that bike drifts out, where you just couldn't keep it in the same place as the other two bikes. Some of that was on corner entry because you're coming in quicker. It almost looked good. Like, there was places where you were wider because I think you were still trying to get stopped and turned. But then on exit, your line would drift out. And like I said, depending on, that might look cool if you only look at one corner, like, oh, he's able to carry a wide line. But then if it's a sharp inside on the next one, the 450, you're trying to gather it back up and bring it back in, where the 300 and the 350 lines were just so much tighter.
It was just, like I said, as soon as I come off, you looked at me, you're like, what do you think? And I said, I think the 300's got the edge, and the cornering ability on the 300, just where you can whiz in and out and you can rely on that power. It doesn't have that two-stroke where you just really have to keep it wound up. Like, it will corner tight and it's responsive.
Yeah. So let's talk fun factor. We have the pure data here, we have the lap times. What about your fun factor on all three bikes? What did you enjoy the most about each one? Which one did you enjoy overall the most?
I mean, I think you'll be able to agree with me on this. When I ride, I want to use as less energy as possible now. Yep. So I can have fun longer.
Yep. And
the 300 just allows that. Like, yes, if you want to sit around and roll on the outsides and really just kind of labor on the 450, yep, third gear is great. Does it wear you out a lot more? Absolutely. I think the 300 in third gear is just as responsive.
Yep.
No, it doesn't have that initial grunt that the 450 has, but it's still very responsive. Like, it even caught me off guard a couple times. I came out of the corner and just feathered the clutch a little bit, and it took off. Like, it wants to go. But yeah, that fun factor is for me just because I can throw the 300 around. But you have to ride it in that sweet spot. It doesn't like to be, like I said, revved out.
Yeah, and it shows on the dyno. What's interesting that we dynoed is the 300 makes more power than the 350 in a certain operating range, mostly down low to mid. But that 300 signs off where the 350 just goes to the absolute moon. It revs another 4,000 RPM making power where the 300 shuts off. So in saying that, like, you're a talented rider, you've raced at the top level, you've got certain bike skills. This 300 compared to other two-strokes you're in, like, how friendly is it? Like, I think of when we talk about 450 versus 350, it's really easy to recommend that 350 for the weekend warrior, the guy that isn't on the bike all the time, that isn't keeping up on their fitness and their skills. How close does the 300 fall in that category? Like, is it still two-stroke enough? Like, hey, there's some things you're gonna have to work on if you ride it, or is this thing really rider-friendly skill set-wise?
I would say, you know, if you're showing up to your local everyday track or local race, I would want to make a couple changes to the 300. I don't feel like, you know, on that initial gate drop, are you going to get the jump? I don't think so, just because that 300 is almost instant, right, as soon as you crack the throttle, as is the 450. If you made a couple gearing changes on the 300, maybe it could get there. But once you get going and you ride it in that user-friendly window of the motorcycle that it likes to be ridden in, you're going to have a blast. But if you try to go out there and ride on the rev limiter and rev it in the air and like to hear kind of that four-strokey stuff, it's not really going to be good for that. So it just kind of depends on what kind of rider you are. If you're a big two-stroke guy, that's absolutely the bike for you. If you're not, then the 300 or the 350 and the 450 are very user-friendly in my opinion.
So I got 2 questions in this. They're both short ones. If you had to pick one of those 3 bikes, you're going racing, you're doing local money races, you're doing your thing at your level, which one are you picking? And then which one are you picking if you're just weekend warrior riding once or twice a month at a local motor track, no racing involved whatsoever, no competitiveness?
I'm picking the 300 just to have fun on and no competitiveness. I'm riding that motorcycle every day. I'm riding it in the hills, I'm riding it GNCC, I'm riding it supercross, motocross, I'm riding it where as many hours as I can put on. If I'm going racing, I'm riding the 350. I think that's a great motorcycle to be competitive on. I think that's a great motorcycle to get good starts on. You don't have to pour a lot of money into the motor. You don't have to pour a lot of money into just a lot of mods on the motorcycle. It's got good out of the box power, and it's a great bike.
So I'm here with our second test rider of the day, Cole Tompkins. Cole, before we went over any of the lap times, after riding the 300, the 350, the 450, what would you have told me that you were fastest on? What did you feel best on?
I'd say the 350, definitely.
Definitely 350. What about second? Do you think you were better on the 450 or the 300?
The 300, for sure. The 450 just didn't, maybe it was the track, but it was just so fast, it was honestly hard to control.
So, like we had Jacob up here earlier. Jacob still rides a lot, tests a lot for us. You're kind of my boat. Real life is hit onto the job side. What do you get to ride? Like maybe once a month, once every other month kind of thing? Or
Yeah, usually like once a month, you know, if I'm lucky, twice a month, but definitely it's tapered off.
It used to be, when I first started hanging out with you, you used to ride 450s a lot. You're kind of playing around with 2-strokes more. We actually tested one of your 2-strokes today. So yeah, your experience with 2-strokes, experience with 450s. Had you even really ridden a 350 before?
No, it's actually this my first true time riding a 350.
Well, it worked out pretty dang well considering your best lap time was on the 350. Your 450 best was a 153.62. Your best lap on the 350 was a 153.57, so about a tenth better. And then your best on the 300 2-stroke was a 154.2. And then your average was better on the 350 than the 450, of course, on top of that. So yeah, actually your average was a little bit better spread than your 450 best lap time. But what did you feel on the 350? Why did you feel like you were the best or the fastest on it?
It just felt, it really, like as soon as I got on it, it just felt real at home. And I felt like this chassis felt better on the 350 than it did the 450. I felt it was more stable and I could kind of turn it and maneuver it where I wanted it to be. And it felt like just a good race bike 250. It just had that over rev and you could still ride it and kind of rev it, but it didn't, you still had the bottom end in the corners.
Where for you, well, let's talk about line selection actually a little bit. So between the 3 bikes, how consistent were you able to stay with your lines between those 3? Was there anything unique you could do on one bike versus the other? Or taking 350, your best bike, could you just get in and out of each section a little bit better?
Today at the track, it was more of like an outside type of line day. But on the 350, I felt like I could just really shove inside and still come out, and it didn't feel like I was lagging coming off the bottom or anything like that. So definitely felt like I can throw the 350 kind of where I wanted it to be.
So now between the 2 bikes, let's talk about fun factor versus, race speed. You were fastest on the 350. Your second fastest on the 450. And your last place bike was the 300 2-stroke. But fun factor, which one did you enjoy the most?
The 300.
The 300?
Yeah, hands down, is such a fun bike. Like, you almost don't want to get off of it.
Yeah. How much, like if you had to give me a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the bottom, what's the 300? What was the 350? What was the 450?
I would say the 300 is a 10. 350 is right there at 8, and then honestly the 450 just wasn't to my liking. I'd say about a 5 or a 6.
Okay. Between all the bikes, is there anything you'd really want to, like if you had to get stuck with one a little more long term, what do you think would help each one in lap time the most?
Honestly, probably just a little suspension on the 450. I felt like on those long straightaways with the chop, the rear just kind of felt like it was floating around, didn't feel real planted. 350, honestly, just a little bit more suspension testing and it'd be right there. And then for the 300, I'd say honestly a little gearing change, and it's race ready.
How did you say on the 300 you felt like for your speed and style you were a little between gear in a couple of the corners?
Yeah, like I always felt like I was just kind of a little in between, and then you just have to, obviously you can't be lazy, you have to shift a lot more. But I just felt a little in between gears.
So of these 2 bikes, if I had to tell you to pick one, you were gonna race again a bit on the weekends, take it a little bit seriously again, what bike are you picking?
I'd pick the 350.
And then total fun factor, like you are right now, riding once a month, doing a couple Grand Prix here, there with some buddies, but really just enjoying it. What are you picking?
Oh, 300.
That's a resounding saying between you and Jacob. We got the 300 as the fun all bike, and the 350 is let's go race and take a little bit competitively again bike. So it looks like the 300 is fairly undefeated in that margin.
Yeah, the 300 it was all around just such a fun bike. Get a smile every which way riding it. Turns, jumps, just felt very well planted.
Well, again, we got a little bit different here between our two riders on the lap times. If you notice, Jacob was fastest on the 302 stroke. For Cole, it was his slowest bike. The 350 was his best. It was Jacob's second. The 450 really changed it around. So different riders, different styles. You're still going to see a little bit of different result, but the actual feeling and opinion on the bikes is pretty darn similar. Let's hear your thoughts in the comments section below. We're really interested in what you think of the opinions, the data from this. And we'd also like to hear some other bikes you'd like to see set up one-on-one. We've got a few things in mind. We've got some more stuff coming with the 300 and 252 strokes. We've got some Supercross ideas, but would also like to hear what you guys think and what you'd like to see us put head to head. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.